So the first step to making any kind of cylinder or to starting wheel throwing is centering your piece on the wheel. It provides the symmetrical foundation for you to make something that is a whole circle and even walled on either side. So we've wedged up our pieces of clay and gotten them into a ball, a nice workable shape. And the next step is to seal this onto the bat itself. This is my favorite part. You literally just take your piece and smack it really hard onto the bat to get a nice stick on there. I just like to take my fingers and squish around the outside just to make sure it's not going to go anywhere, so that if I push on it like this, it's not just rolling right off. If you happen to smack it on there and it's way over here, I would pick it back up, hit it into a ball, and get it as close to the center as you can. It's just going to make the centering process a little bit easier for you. So far we have wedged up our clay, hit it into a ball, and sealed it onto the bat with dry hands, right? If I rub my hands together, you can hear the friction that's happening, right? There's not much clay on my hands either, which means that if I try to rub on this piece of clay, stuff is gonna smear off, right? It's gonna get stuck. As we start to spin our clay, we're never gonna touch it with dry hands ever again. Because if we try to put our dry hands on here, all that clay is gonna come off. It's gonna pull the piece of clay right off of the bat because there's friction between our skin and the actual clay. So I'll take my little sponge and I'll squeeze some water on there. Get your hands wet, you can splash it on there, whatever you find most comfortable. Just enough so that when I place my hands on there, there's no more friction between the clay and myself, right? I can rub my hands like this and there's no sound happening, there's no sticking. I've got my pedal pushed about 50% of the way down, and everyone likes it at a variety of speeds. If you're going way too fast or way too slow, I'll come over and tap you on the shoulder and let you know. But oftentimes, whatever feels most comfortable to you is the right answer. So, first thing I'm gonna do is just rest my hands on the clay. And I'll have you look at my fingers and my hands. See if they're moving around quite a bit. I will know that this piece is nice and centered in the middle of the piece, in the middle of the wheel, when I can put my hands on there and they're completely steady. There's no wobbling happening, my fingers aren't moving at all. Oftentimes looks can be deceptive too. Sometimes you just put your hands on there and close your eyes and you'll feel that teeny tiny back and forth that's happening, and know that there's maybe a little bit more centering that needs to be done. I will pause and add water whenever I feel that sticking starting to happen again, and it will happen sometimes more quickly than you think it will. I promise you that allowing that friction to happen will make it a little bit harder, even though it's tempting to just continue to squeeze on it. So feel free to pause whenever you need to add some more water. The first thing I'm gonna do to start to center this piece is I'm just gonna squeeze on it. Like if you were to hold a mason jar and squeeze with all parts of your hands, it's gonna get rid of the outside lumps and bumps. So I'm gonna give it a nice good squeeze, squeezing with all parts of my hand all the way around the circle. And now it's much softer, right? I've gotten rid of all of my finger marks from when we were wedging it and hitting it into a ball. And so now my fingers are moving a lot less, right? But if you look at my hands, they're still going like this, right? The actual core of this piece is thrown off somewhere from the center. So in order to get it pushed all the way into the middle, we use a process called coning, which involves massaging the clay up into space and then back down again, which is pushing it towards the center, just like this unmoving force physics-wise. I could never explain it mathematically, but I promise that it works. So what you're gonna do is put your wrists together, nice and close like this, into a butterfly shape. The blades of my hands are gonna be nice and flush to the bat. You can see that there is a clean ring that starts to form. And with the base of my hand, the heel of my hands right here, I'm going to lean forward onto this piece. In order to get the right angle, to get it to come up, I'm going to make sure that I'm positioned on the wheel well enough to be able to lean on it. Throwing requires very little upper body strength. I can do maybe one push-up on a really good day, and I can do it. So it's all about angling your body weight. So I'm nice and close up to the wheel, as close as I need to be to keep my elbows tucked at my sides, right? If I'm way out here, there's no way I'm keeping my elbows nice and tucked in, right? So I'm as forward as I need to be. Having the elbows at the sides allows you to lean through the forearms rather than having this loosey-goosey, long extended arm situation going on. So elbows nice and tucked in, wrists touching together. I'm going to lean through my forearms, through the base of my hands, just in a forward direction, and slowly my piece is going to start to get a little bit taller. Again, I'll pause whenever that friction starts to happen, add some more water, and continue to lean. All of this is happening through the base of the hands. The rest of the hands aren't really doing much, but you can relax your fingers wherever they feel most comfortable. Oftentimes people are tempted to keep them splayed out here, which tends to like strain the wrists. They can just fold over, they're just not really squeezing at all. All of that forward motion is coming through that heel of the hand. All right. As we're leaning forward, we're moving towards that center point, which forces the clay up into space, right? We went from more of a mound to more of like a little tower happening. And you can see at the top here, there's a piece that looks all chunky and wobbly. That's a good thing. You've pushed it up to the top so that now we can put our hands on it and incorporate it back into the clay in an even way. So we have coned it up. We've gotten it nice and up into space, into its tall little mountain shape. And now we're going to bring it back down. The wrists remain touching. It's the exact same hand shape, but I'm going to tuck the top of this into the crook of my hands right here. If I hold my hands like this and push my thumbs in, you see that shelf that starts to form, right? That's going to get placed on the top of my piece right here. Elbows are remaining tucked in. Rather than pushing forward with the arms, I'm leaning on this piece of clay with my body weight.
Does it put a lot of pressure on your thumb? Like right
this like meaty part on the inside, not in any way that will
This
hurt.
one, well, my thumb is straight at the moment, so I was trying
Totally,
to make sure
and
that
you
it
can
wasn't gonna hurt
always
too
like
bad.
the hands are getting pushed together
Okay,
too.
sweet.
So it's a lot of like leaning with the body rather than trying to push down with the fingers. As I'm leaning on this, I'm gonna lean forward and down, and the forward part is key. Again, something about centripetal force I can never explain mathematically. It's going to force the clay back down inside itself and out rather than out and around, which brings it down in an even way. So, wrist touching like this, thumbs nice and squished down. I'm going to place them on the top. Again, fingers can wrap around wherever they're comfortable. And I'm gonna lean forward and down. And I'll feel my clay start to expand at the bottom. I can start to open up my fingers to allow it space. And we're gonna keep pushing all the way until it reaches the base of the back once again. And we've gone from tall tower situation to a small squatty mountain once again. So now when I put my hands on it, there's no more movement happening, right? I will say, sometimes this takes 5, 6, 7, 8 times up and down to get it into a centered place, and that's totally fine. I'll be completely transparent. Centering is the most challenging and least interesting part of the process, but incredibly foundational to the next few steps, and will make your life a lot easier and prettier if we're able to spend a lot of time focusing on getting our piece nice and centered. So don't expect to magically understand it the first time. Like, it's definitely a learning process, but a lot of fun to be able to touch the whole clay and really figure out that coordination with applying pressure through leaning your body weight rather through pushing with the arms and the hands. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, this is as far as we're gonna go today. If you get yourself to a little centered piece